This is Brian Gordon with Chapter 4 of the Spellgrazer Saga. Chapter 4, Symphony of Destruction. 2 patrols of smaller demons appeared from either side of the castle. Each spotted the group as they prepared and rushed toward them. 3 demons from either side leaped and clawed their way toward the small group. Fangs and claws flashed as they bounded along. Dunmal held his blade steady with his back to the arch and urged the others to use it as cover. A large, arcing swing of his sword caught the first 2 creatures to arrive on either side, one after the other. The first beast slammed against the castle itself, and the other into the bordering wall. His shield came up in time to block the other 2 that had come from his left, and he thrust the large blade at the one to his right. Ransa caught the last attacker with his saber and plunged his dagger into its hide before kicking it away. The poison from his blades flowed through its veins, slowing its movement to a crawl. Shanra repeated a mantra as darkness accumulated around her hands. A swelling rift of energy pulsed until she directed its power at the small demon that Dunmal had knocked into the wall. The blast hit one demon, then bounced to another, and continued to bounce between demons, knocking each of them several feet into the air before its power diminished. From the heap it had landed in against the castle, one of the demons clambered back up and struck out towards Dunmal once more, but the orbiting lightning shield moved to defend him. The demon was stunned. This, along with a crushing blow from Dunmal's shield, knocked the demon far from consciousness. Ransa continued to slice and slash. His blades tore and stabbed flesh as they spread his poisons, which locked the creature's muscles in place, making it extremely difficult for them to attack. Barlo spoke beneath his breath as he invoked the power of the light, his halo a shining beacon for its strength. Bathed in a white flash, the group felt revitalized as they watched the scattered demons turn into ash and blow away as dust. Dunmal led them into the courtyard to the left of the castle, where they came across another small cluster of minions. 4 of the smaller beasts and 1 larger, different creature caught sight of them and charged. As the flock of smaller minions scampered toward their demise, the larger beast lagged behind with a large, spiked ball attached to a thick, linked chain in hand which he dragged behind him. Ransa's blades did their work while Dunmal smashed them with his heavier sword and battered them with his shield. Behind them, Shanra and Barlo were both muttering in ancient languages to their respective deities. A white circle appeared on the ground surrounding the group, and then faded as Barlo finished his prayer. Shanra made a set of gestures, and energy gathered around her until her hand shot forward and a wave of disruptive force was channeled toward the larger demon. Before it reached him, the energy exploded and formed into a large obelisk-shaped spike that seemed to erupt out of the ground. Her attack hit the demon hard, but it resumed its movement toward them until Dunmal dashed toward it, shield braced in front of him. More quickly than expected, the demon yanked the ball from the ground and sent it flying toward Dunmal. He dodged out of the way, but his charge was interrupted, his momentum lost. He resumed his attack and spun as he neared the demon, which gave his heavy blade tremendous force, and slammed it into the beast's side. The large ball went flying backwards toward Dunmal, and he dodged out of the way once more. Dunmal caught sight of Ransa rushing in to strike from behind, as well as Shanra and Barlo moving closer in to aid in what ways they could, but the quick blasts Shanra had sent toward the beast were deflected by the massive ball. A loud crashing noise accompanied the spiked ball as it wedged itself into the side of the castle behind the massive creature, several feet off the ground. The demon used the embedded ball as an anchor and heaved itself into the air. Like an angry, putrid volley, the demon flew toward the wall with its clawed feet outstretched. When he landed on the wall above the impact crater, his feet dug into the wall and he clung there, grabbed the ball, and lobbed it underhand towards Dunmal. Quick work with his shield kept the ball from hitting him square on, but forced the group back toward the wall. The demon sprung off from the wall and landed back on the ground. It pulled the chain once more, which started the ball swinging around in a deadly circle. In a free swing, the ball posed even more of a threat as it made giant, swooping arcs past Dunmal and Ransa. Rage burned inside the 2 as they charged in for another attack. Ransa started the assault from the side, and Dunmal charged him headlong as soon as the ball had whipped past his face. Ransa deftly maneuvered out of the arching path of the weapon when it suddenly shot forth and crashed into Dunmal's shield with a massive force that knocked him on the ground. This was the prime opportunity for Ransa to strike, as the chain was pulled tight between the orb and its owner, and in one keen strike he severed the binding extension. The heavy chain fell flat onto the ground with a clank, and Shanra unleashed a flurry of smaller spells which exploded toward the demon in a dazzling display of light and sound. Upon impact, each of the smaller blasts burst with concussive force and finally knocked the larger beast backwards a few feet. Dunmal had risen to his feet and was gripping his sword for a heavy attack. He leaped high into the air as Barlo finished an invocation, which resulted in a bright shimmer flowing from his hands to Dunmal's blade, infusing his weapon with the holy power of the light for a powerful strike. The wretched scream that the beast let forth almost sounded like a plea for mercy from the demon, a plea that would go unheard. Before Dunmal had even removed his sword from the belly of the beast, the fire of the light burned brightly and the demon was turned to ash. Words were few between them, but they all shared a look of triumph in their coordinated efforts. The small group rounded the next corner carefully and hid themselves in the overgrown brush that surrounded the structure. Through the tangle of branches and vines, they saw a large, ornate fountain that sat in the center of a small hedge maze. 2 troops of smaller minions, 4 apiece, patrolled the area. One of the groups was moving towards them, but had not seen them yet. Dunmal signaled for the group to remain still while he moved toward the center of the path that encircled the castle. When the minions were close enough, he stepped into view and brought his sword down on a large arc with terrifying force and smashed it into the stones of the path. The attack had not been pointless, as a display of destruction ran forth from his blade and toppled the group of surprised minions. Ransa dove in and began slicing Demon Hide as he spun in mad circles, blades in a flurry of deadly motions. Blinding light erupted from behind him as Barlo turned their dying bodies into ash and dust once more. They had acted quickly enough to avoid drawing the attention of the second group, but it would not be long before they came into view. Shanra smiled as her hands moved in a flowing gesture, a spell prepared for the next wave of enemies. As soon as they rounded the corner of the edge of the hedge maze, she said a quick string of words and bombarded them with a series of smaller blasts that knocked them back from their feet and continued to rain down on them until the pieces that remained ceased to move. Barlo did not even bother incinerating them. There was a large doorway that led through the bottom of the tower and into the castle's interior, but they had decided to clear the outside first, to work in layers like peeling an onion. It would be unwise for them to leave any creatures outside of the building, waiting to ambush them as the group made their way out. Instead, they continued around to the back side of the castle, which was almost identical to the other side, but there were no minions lurking in any of the corners. Roots and vegetation seeped through the patterned stone, poured across the entire courtyard, and had grown thick through the rows of plants that had once lined the outside as it crept up the walls and covered the bottom 2 sets of windows. Up on the roof sat a group of winged minions, squabbling over the remains of a bird that had been unfortunate enough to fly into their domain. It was only after the remains had been knocked away from them by their bickering and fell to the ground that they noticed the warrior and his group. With loud screeches, they swooped down on the adventurers, where their claws and beaks tore at any exposed flesh. Shanra threw a fist into the air and energy exploded outward like a star being brought into existence. Charred pieces of the winged demons scattered around them in a circle as another flock appeared from the roof and careened down toward them. Barlo was harnessing the power of the light and spreading it between them. His halo glowed brightly over his head and radiated a warm, gentle light. The wounds they had received closed up and bled no more. Dunmal had swung his blade around twice to build up momentum, and when the second wave of foes landed on them, he batted half of them to the ground in a fierce, broad-sided swing. Ransa made quick work of the creatures once they were down, and sent several blades flying through the air while Dunmal swung once more. A quick word from Barlo, and the area was illuminated for a moment as the demons' bodies and parts were quickly turned to ash. Frantic, heavy, and steadily growing sounds of wings flapping edged in from all around the castle. The first 2 waves had only been a precursor. A darkened cloud erupted from behind the castle, filled the sky like night, and plummeted straight down toward them. Claws and teeth and beaks flashed. The group was surrounded instantly, but Ransa was prepared with a very peculiar stance that none of the others had ever seen before. It looked almost like a dance. The speed and grace with which Ransa was able to handle his weapons made him look like the conductor of a symphony of destruction. As he waved his arms and twisted his body to a deadly beat, his blades followed and moved effortlessly through the scores of flying minions that were surrounding them. An aura of red light emanated from him as more of his weapons began to dance around him as well, moving of their own free will with a viciousness that rivaled Ransa's own efforts. Before long, there was an entire army of blades swinging and spinning, slicing and stabbing, while bodies and pieces piled up around them. Dunmal had acted just as quickly, swinging his large sword upward and releasing it into a deadly spin. Through sheer will and focus, he guided the spinning mass through the crowds of demons. The blade did not so much cut as it did smash them into thick puddles and stains. Shanra blasted as many as she could with volleys of energetic fury, and Barlo kept the group alive with his prayers, while incinerating any that made it through the onslaught surrounding him. It did not take them long to clear the skies with their combined forces. Ransa completed his deadly dance with an explosive finale. His blades shot outward, each finding a home within the belly of a demon before returning to their various sheaths and straps. The heavy blade Dunmal carried was lodged into the ground, a number of demons trapped dead beneath it, and Shanra and Barlo had used their various incantations to smite any that had not been separated into small pieces already. It would seem that the lording demon was testing them. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 4. I hope you enjoyed.